Okay, it is now the following day since I first put my deer hide in my acid solution for the pickling process, and today I'm going to thin the hide. Now, there's different ways you can do this. Obviously, the most economical way is to do it with a bunch of like razor blades, like scalpels, or a very sharp knife, which this is not, but if you had a very sharp knife. Now, the first deer hide that I tried to do, I was trying to, have the least amount of money out of my pocket as possible. I did try to thin the hide a little bit with a knife, and I made a lot of cuts through the hide accidentally. I was using razor blades with the squared edge, and that was causing problems. And I didn't really thin the hide as much as really was needed, which causes the hide to shrink a lot more the more you don't thin it down. And I said, you know what, in the future, I'm just going to give myself a little bit more of help. So they have fleshers, which is a machine that it has a blade, and you basically use that to thin the skin off the hide. Those typically run starting at $600 and up. And then I did a lot of research. This is a mini flesher, which I think I got for around the $280 range. And there's a lot of advantages. You have a little bit more control with this. The blade it's actually a toothed blade, which you're probably not going to be able to see too well here. There's itty bitty little teeth. So this type of a blade will actually last longer than a blade on a standard flesher. This runs off of an air compressor. And here's the biggest drawback I currently have is I only have a 6-gallon like pancake air compressor. What you really need is something like a 20-gallon air compressor, but the most important thing probably is having a 5 horsepower motor. If you have like a 1 horsepower motor, it's not going to keep up with this. And so I'm going to use this for the fleshing process, but I'm going to have to stop a lot to allow the air tank to fill back up. So what happens is the air level comes down and the motor kicks on. I'll be able to run it a little bit with the motor running. So I'm going to be working the motor hard, and I'm going to have to stop a lot. So it's not ideal. When you first use something like this, go to the very back and bottom of the deer hide and practice a little bit and get accustomed to it before you start really going into the more important areas like upper in the neck, the things that are really going to stand out on the mount. You don't want to be ripping a hole right through your hide with something like this, your first go. Okay, so I'm going to take my hide, check on it. It looks like it could actually dry a little bit longer. Alright, so I'm going to take my hide out now. Now, to get started with this, I'm going to use my little fleshing board thing that I talked about before. Move this towel out of here. So now this is the back of the deer. So this is going to be the very back bottom of the mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here just to reacquaint myself, and before I get started I'm going to find my goggles. Alright, so here's a pair of goggles. Obviously ones that would cup around your eyes would be better because something could always get up under it, but this is what I have available right now, so this is what I'm going to use. You want this to be pretty tight on here, and I'm just going to give it a couple strips here. Alright, well my Fleshall mini flesher just died, and so now I'm back with a scalpel, and I'm basically trimming off the skin that's this membrane that's real dark, getting down to the actual flesh, white. Alright, I'm a little bit standstill with my fleshing, so I'm going to work on the ear here. And you want to remove this cartilage, remove it. So what I do is I fold it in half and just cut through the cartilage very carefully across the back here, and I'm actually going to peel it off by hand. So I've just sliced it with the scalpel, and I'm just gently working it up. If you pull too hard, you can pull the skin of the ear off, and then you got a hole to deal with. So you just kind of gently work it up. If you go gingerly, I find it's a little easier if you keep the cartilage somewhat intact. When it starts to rip, it gets a little bit hard to get it started again. You just try to take it off in as large a pieces as you can. And here I'm kind of along the edge. I'm going to have a little hard time picking at that, but I'll just go with what I got here. So here's a piece of cartilage, and so I just have to pick at it along the edge here, and work my way that way as well and get all the cartilage off. Alright, so I've got the ear here. This is the cartilage from the bottom. I've got it almost all worked off in one piece. Now the skin in this ear is very, very thin, so you have to be careful because you can very easily rip it or even pull the hairs through, little white hairs that go in the ear. Once I got all the cartilage peeled off of both ears, I went on to flesh the face out. I typically just use a scalpel for this and just delicately thin out the face. Really what you're doing is you're just thinning out the skin, and in the face it's already fairly thin, so you got to be careful so that you're not cutting too deep. That's why I don't use the mini flesher on the face. By the way, I called the company, and after about a week of trying to get in touch with them, I found out the reason why it stopped working, mine did, is because there's a set screw or some kind of a screw in there that got a little bumped out of whack. So once I fixed that, I could use that on the hide again if I needed to. So that's going to bring us to the end of this particular episode. I hope you will stay tuned for the next one. Until then, take care and God bless you.